You're listening to The Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips, where we present audiobook quality readings of the classics for your enjoyment. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, just because you're a bumpkin doesn't mean you can't be cultured. Hello and welcome back to The Cultured Bumpkin on this Sunday morning. And as we often do on Sunday mornings, we go over a popular story from the Bible to help with our cultural literacy. The Bible is such an important book to be familiar with. There's so much in it. I'm reading through Moby Dick right now, and the number of times that he's mentioned Jonah is multitude. All right, and before we get into the story, I think it's important to know this fact right here. So the story we're going to read is called The Good Samaritan. We've all heard the name. Probably most of us have actually heard the story, but we'll get into it. And just in case you're not sure of you're not quite familiar with it, which is why we're here in the first place. Listen to this verse. This is from the book of John, chapter 4. And Jesus he's traveling, right, with his disciples. And it says, he left Judea and departed again into Galilee, and he must needs go through Samaria. All right, well, then he gets to this well outside of Samaria, and Jesus asked the lady to give him a drink. Would you mind pulling some water up out of the well for me and giving me a drink? I'm thirsty, I'm tired. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? Now look at this. For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Okay, and that's a very important fact to know. Samaritans were very much looked down upon by most Jews. You didn't hang out with them. You didn't ask them for favors. You didn't let them touch your drinking vessel, that sort of thing. Okay, so that makes this story, I think, even more special. Let's go to the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10. So this story happens in a public place, and a man comes up to him and asks him a question. And so the story of the Good Samaritan is an answer to the man's question. So this is from the Gospel according to Luke chapter 10, verse 25, and it goes, And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tempted him, saying, Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said unto him, What is written in the law? How readest thou? And he answering said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. And he said unto him, Thou hast answered right. This do, and thou shalt live. But he, willing to justify himself, said unto Jesus, And who is my neighbor? And Jesus answering said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment, and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him, and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, Take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. Which now of these 3, thinkest thou, was neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves? And he said, He that showed mercy on him. Then said Jesus unto him, Go, and do thou likewise. I think that's a beautiful story. A couple little notes for clarification. A priest obviously is a religious cleric. You would think he's going to do the right thing, right? Care for the poor. And nope, not this one. He went right around him. Levite was the same thing. Under the, in the Old Testament, it talks about what the job of the Levite was. And there were 3 different classes of Levite. The sons of Merari, the sons of Gershom, and the sons of Kohath. And each one had a different job. Like one was supposed to pack up the tabernacle, and one was supposed to carry the Ark of the Covenant, things like that. So this particular Levite, I don't know if he worked in the temple, offering the sacrifices or what, but he was a very religious man, and you would think he would have compassion on the poor. If he's so worried about keeping the law of Moses, then he would have also seen the part in the law of Moses that said, to take care of guys like this. But nope, neither one of them did. And this Samaritan, this dirty old Samaritan, came by and took good care of him. And it says he gave him 2 pence. Some people will think, 2 pence, well, that ain't much. Well, if you look also in the same book of Luke, that word pence is clarified as a whole day's wage. A fellow went and worked in a vineyard and said, that which is right, I will give thee. I'm going to give you fair market price for your work. And at the end of the day, he gave him 1 penny. So if you in that context, if you give someone 2 pennies, 2 pence, that's 2 days' wages. That's plenty enough for a night, a couple of nights in a hotel and a few meals. You know what I mean? That's a good man giving away a lot of money that he probably worked hard for. Anyway, what a beautiful story. We should all be like the Good Samaritan. Go and do thou likewise. I'm going to try to do it. I hope you do too. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope we'll see you back here tomorrow very soon. Please subscribe and leave a review if you can, and tell a friend. I sure do appreciate you listening. Have a good one. You've been listening to The Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips. Thank you very much for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, would you mind going and subscribing and leaving a nice review on whatever podcast platform you heard this on? I would really appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.